Good afternoon, and thanks, or good morning rather, sorry. Thanks for having me. I can't really see you guys, but thanks very much, Miss, for the introduction. As she said in the video, I am Ozak and I am based in Switzerland. I'm currently speaking to you from Liechtenstein today. And today I'm going to be talking about myself. So three things basically about me, because I've been asked to give you a brief explanation of my background, what I did, what I studied when I was your age to get to where I am today. And also I've put together some resources which I call Be Inspired to kind of encourage you or enthuse you as much as I am about science, technology, engineering, and maths, especially computing. And then I'll take any questions that you have at the end. And I'm hoping that you have lots of questions. So please feel free to pass on your questions to Miss, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so jumping straight into it about myself, my background. I'm Nigerian. I was born and raised in Nigeria, as you can see on the slide here in front of you. I was born in Abuja, in Kaduna, which is the north of Nigeria. The capital of Nigeria is Abuja, as you can see with my mouse there. And I completed all my formal education up until college in Nigeria, and that's what I kind of summarize in this slide here for you to see. So I did my primary school and age 2 to 10, and then I went to junior high and senior high age 11 to 16, which most of you, if not all of you in the room, are currently in year 9, around 12, 13, I suppose, where you'd be making decisions on what subjects to offer. So I've been through that as well. And in Nigeria, after high school, so at 16 here, we usually go straight to university. So A levels are not part of our educational system in Nigeria. But my parents knew very early I wasn't going to go to study at university in Nigeria because we have frequent strikes. So either staff go on strike because they're not paid enough, or students go on strike because the fees are very high for the quality that they're getting out of their education. So very early on, my parents were saving up money so that I could go study in Ghana. But Ghana wasn't going to take me because I was 16. I had to be 17 before I could start university there. And so my parents sent me to an A-level school in Nigeria, where I spent 1 year, and I did something called accelerated A-levels, which is your AS and A2 in 1 year. I don't recommend it because I only managed to get 3 C's, as you can see there. But I do have friends who got A stars and A's in all the subjects that they offered, which shows you how clever Nigerians are. But I wasn't one of them at that particular point. So what subjects did I offer when I was in high school? I offered physics, mathematics, geography. For the mathematics, English, which is compulsory in Nigeria for all students. Economics, I really loved economics because it really showed you how policies affect people, how the economy works basically, and gives you a rounded understanding. Computer science was very important because whilst you're doing science and engineering, everything these days involves technology in one form or the other, and there is no escaping having a basic understanding of computer science. I also did chemistry, biology, and agriculture science as well. And I highlighted these top 3 because that's what I chose to do at A levels. Physics, maths, and geography. And the reason for that was because I knew what I wanted to study at university. So those 3 courses would help me bridge that gap. But throughout my high school, I sat exams, my GCSEs in all 10 subjects, basically. So as a teen, these are the things that were interesting to me. I briefly touched on economics already. I also liked maths. I liked maths because there was a formula for how you solve it and how you break down problems. I really liked that whole idea of, figuring out a solution to a problem. And it came easy for me. I also spent a lot of time practicing, and that's something I want to say to many of you in the audience who feel like maybe maths is not your strong suit. Physics was not for me, for example, which is my second point on this slide. So I had to work hard at understanding physics, even though I did it for A levels. And how I did that was by practicing. And like musical instruments is the only way you would ever get better at anything. You have to dedicate time to practice it. So I don't think there are people who just are knowledgeable about everything. They spend time, their spare time actually practicing to get better at it. I was generally interested in the environment. So I grew up in Nigeria, like I mentioned before. I'm from Cross River State, which is in the south. I think I should have shown you on the slide here. So that's where Cross River State is, where I'm from. And it's very oil rich. So we have lots of crude oil that is drilled and exploited by different companies. And that whole region in the southeast of Nigeria is rich for oil. And I've just put an example of what my reality was like at the time. So this is Port Harcourt, which is a neighboring city in a neighboring state, River State. And they have quite a lot of gas explosions, quite a lot of oil pollution that is actually affecting the way people live their lives. So there are lots of rivers where families used to fish from. They can no longer use those waters. And this sort of shows you, if you park your car outside in the UK during winter, you get snow. This is what people constantly get in Port Harcourt. So I was very aware of these things growing up, and I was really passionate about finding solutions. I was passionate about how we can conserve the environment, but I never made the link between my passions and the things I was interested in with the stuff I was studying in school and seeing what subjects I could do. But then taking part in like essay competitions around and debates, which is in my English course, I then started to make the link, and with help from my tutors and my parents, I was able to establish that link that, okay, if I do pursue a career in engineering, I would be able to have the skills that would help me to solve these real problems that we have in our everyday life. So ultimately, what actually sent me, speaking to those problems, some of which I mentioned before, despite the fact that we're very oil rich in Nigeria, access to constant electricity is a problem we all face, no matter what your demographic is or your social standing is. We don't have constant electricity. And so I went through all these stages in the slide here. So my family started off with candles, and I used to do my homework with candles. And my mom used to try and make me do it early when there was daylight so that I didn't have to use a candle to do my homework, but that was the reality. And then as my parents earned more money, we could buy kerosene, which we use for kerosene lanterns here. And then eventually we moved to rechargeable lamps, which they would take to their office and charge and then bring back home at night for me and my siblings and I to use. And then ultimately they earned enough to have their own personal diesel generator. So this is sort of like the ultimate goal for most Nigerians because we don't have electricity. And so you see businesses and individuals all buying diesel generators, and they do cause a lot of noise pollution. If you imagine everybody's house having a generator on at the same time, everybody's office having one at the same time. And also a lot of air pollution as well, because you're burning diesel constantly. And so this is an extract from my UCAS statement, which is when you're applying to go to university. For those of you who don't know, you apply through a body called UCAS. So while I was at that A-level school, even though I knew I was going to go to Ghana, my tutors encouraged me to apply through UCAS because they said I had the grades, basically the predicted grades to go on to study there. And so I wrote, I wish to study electronic, and this is the reason why I chose to study electronic and electrical engineering, because there is so many different types of engineering. But my main focus was my aspirations to design better electricity generating systems. And from speaking to my tutors and my parents, they made me understand that that is what an electrical engineer does. And that's why I chose to study electrical engineering. So I did end up going to Ghana. I applied to 5 universities, as you would through UCAS, and you then shortlist and pick 2. And I think my last 2 were Loughborough University, which was my insurance choice, and University of Birmingham. Obviously, when my grades came out, like I showed you in the previous slide, I made 3 C's, so I was immediately rejected by my firm choice, University of Birmingham. And so I was already packing my bags to go to Ghana because Ghana was already waiting to receive me. You know, the year had passed and I was now 17. And I had made the grades I needed from my O-levels when I was 16 to go straight to Ghana. And then my sister told me to just call Loughborough because it hadn't changed on the platform, on the UCAS platform. And I remember calling them and I was crying, like, I don't have anywhere else to go. And I remember the admissions tutor saying, if you keep crying, we can't hear what you're saying. So I was calling them from Nigeria all the way. And they said the reason why my UCAS hadn't changed was because they hadn't received my English O-level results. And as an international student, to get a visa to study in the UK, they needed my English results. And so I said I had a grade B, and the minimum I needed for that was a grade C in my O-level English. And he said, congratulations, we're happy to offer you a place at Loughborough University. And I was like, are you kidding me? And he was like, no, we're not. But because you're starting late, you need to hurry up and send us the relevant documents so we can send you confirmation and, provide you with accommodation. So I arrived in the UK shortly after that in September 2008, and it's the best experience I've ever had, best decision. It wasn't a decision because my grades sort of made that decision for me. But I like to tell that story because when you get to that point, I hope you all go on to get A's and whatever. But if that's not the case, make sure you get on the phone to the schools on that day. Most universities are willing to concede for a certain number of students. They have an allowance for this, but you have to actually make that call. And I think the formal process is called clearing. So it's not the end of the world if you don't make your grades. God forbid you do make your grades. I hope you do make your grades. But if you're in that sort of situation like I am, please get on the phone and make the call. And if you have any older siblings as well who may be going through this particular phase at the moment, let's share that information with them. And so I went to Loughborough University, which is in the Midlands, and it turned out to be the best thing that's happened to me. So I did my undergraduate degree. So I had to downgrade to the I applied for an MN program, which is the master's program. But because I didn't make the A grades that were predicted for me, I had 3 C's. I had to downgrade to the bachelor's program, but they told me that there are opportunities to go back to the MH program if I get a 2-1, which is like a 60% and 64% and above in my first year. I ended up graduating with a first class, and I was awarded a scholarship by Loughborough University to then pursue my PhD in electronic and electrical engineering. And I've just put some pictures there. So I was a minor when I started university. It wasn't fun because obviously I couldn't go out on the nightlife because you had to be 18, etc. But I think coming to Loughborough, I always felt like everyone else had A stars, and they did in my class, and I came in with 3 C's. So I just saw it as an opportunity to catch up with where my peers were, and so I spent quite a lot of time studying in my first year. And then when I was 18, I was able to go out clubbing. It wasn't the same because most of my peers had been there, done that in first year, they were over it, but nonetheless, I still had a wonderful university experience. I did my PhD, and I'll talk about it in the coming slides on the specific topic I did, but it was also within the same discipline. I made so many friends at university, and for me, that's one of the key things I'd like to highlight. It was more of the experience. I met people from all over the world because there was truly an international community at Loughborough, and you could get involved in sports, you can get involved in societies and stuff around culture. And it was really a wonderful experience. I ended up being elected to be the president of the Nigerian Society at the university. And we raised money for charity and did so many things that a lot of volunteering that I really, really enjoyed. And till this day, there are many parts of the world like Sri Lanka or Oman, like I just say, oh, I want to go there, and I know somebody from university who is there, and I don't have to pay for hotel accommodation. I could just stay in their house, which is great. So for me, that was the best thing about university that I can remember. But I always like to say that university is also not the only route to a career in engineering. So for me as an international student, that was the only option available to me. There are apprenticeships available as well. If you know you're more of a practical learner, more of a hands-on learner, and you enjoy that more than the theory, I often recommend you have a look at apprenticeships because these days there are degree apprenticeships that are sponsored by companies. You get to earn money while you work as an apprentice, and on the degree apprenticeships, the company pays for you to do your degree. So in my case, I knew from the beginning, my family knew from the beginning, it was a big financial plan that they had, and they had to save up money for my degree, which is very expensive. Apprenticeships is a great way to arrive at the same solution, at the same outcome, which is being an engineer or being a professional STEM career holder, basically, but with significant hands-on experience from the moment you start your career. So you're working and learning at the same time, but I didn't have this option available for me. That's why I went through the university route. Now for my professional career, like I mentioned, I did my PhD at Loughborough, and it was looking at how we can detect damage on wind turbine blades. So wind turbines generate electricity for us. They're a renewable energy source. And often the blades get damaged, but they don't have a voice to tell us that they're damaged. So often how they're maintained is on a schedule base, a calendar base. So every third of the month, you have technical staff who power down a power station, a wind turbine station, and then they climb up and actually start visually inspecting them for cracks or any defects. So my PhD was actually looking at how we use MEMS accelerometer, that stands for Micro Electromechanical Systems Accelerometers. It's a mouthful, I know, but they're a really tiny chip, and you can see in the top picture here, right next to a £1 coin, that black dot there, that's what they look like. And they're used in our smartphones to tell us the direction. So whenever you use Google Maps to know whether to turn left or turn right, it's an accelerometer that's helping you do that. And because of the increased availability of smartphones, they become really, really cheap, and you can use them to detect vibrations, basically, that then tell you whether a system is in good health or not. And so that's basically what my PhD was, and I proposed a single chip device that can sit on the wind turbine blade, be detecting these cracks, maybe when there's winter and there's ice on it, and then in summer when the ice has when the ice has thawed, and basically constantly monitoring the life cycle of the blade, and it wirelessly sends this information to the base station. So now you only have to power down when that turbine blade is actually faulty, and that way wind energy companies can continue generating revenue and generating income and providing energy, which is the most important thing to people within that particular power station. So after my PhD, I was looking for jobs in energy because that's what I was passionate about. I wanted to stay in electricity. I struggled as an international student because you require a work permit, a visa, to take up employment after your studies in the UK. And so I started looking broader, and at the time the problem was energy companies were oversaturated, they weren't sponsoring visas, but there were other parts of engineering that were really desperate, and one that is still very desperate is the construction and built environment industry. Not many people are applying to that, and I don't know why, because it's one of the fundamental sectors to everything we do. Without construction, we wouldn't have the schools where you're currently sat in listening to me, we wouldn't have my office where I am, our cinema, as our roads, even the electricity we need, the infrastructure for that is all part of the construction industry. And so I applied to the construction industry and I got a job at Condor as a graduate engineer, designing electrical services for your buildings. And I like to point that out because it shows you how fluid and dynamic careers in STEM are. You may start up at the energy generation side and end up in actually the consumption side. So what I do is designing how electricity goes through your building from the moment a site is mapped out as we want to build here. How do we get electricity to your socket to then power whatever activities you want to do? So a lot of it is about how we consume energy in a building. How can we reduce that for the footprint of that particular building? And so a lot of it involves electrical distribution, lighting design, so using a lot of software on your computers to plan and design and calculate correctly what the supply needs to be for that particular space. Includes fire alarm systems that tell you when there's a fire or detect a fire, and how that links to your panel to then lead to people actually evacuating a building. There's security and access control, and depending on the type of building, so I worked on schools, I worked on offices. For example, if you're working on military buildings, the level of security then changes. But yeah, I really found it interesting. I learned so much on the job, but we're going on site often to inspect the work that is being done by the builders, but also designing for new types of projects. And I got to work on so many cool projects in Dubai. I got to go back home to Nigeria. Here's one of the projects I worked on in Nigeria where we were designing an office for a client. So it was really nice, full circle. I left as a 17-year-old and I was coming back as a professional engineer working on the project. I stayed in Condor for 4 years, and then I started to miss research, being at the cutting edge and finding out what the latest is. And I decided to go work for BRE, which is the Building Research Establishment in Watford. And basically what I was doing there was combining stuff from my PhD around sensor technology, but with buildings. So the UK, it was a UK government funded project, a £72 million project to look at how we can digitize the construction sector. So how can we use, and I was the smart buildings lead in that particular company. So looking at how we can use sensors to collect data about our buildings and then help us cut our energy usage, our water usage, etc. But also, most importantly, guarantee the comfort of occupants within the building. So we started looking at what the advantages would be, what the benefits would be, but also what the risk could be. So, like cybersecurity. Could somebody then hack into a sensor, and how can we prevent that from happening? And then I did that. So here I just put up a bit about what a smart building is. A smart building is a building that is intelligent, sustainable, secure, adaptive, and occupant-centered in its design, construction, operation, and integration with other smart infrastructure. A complete, so for that you need quite a lot of IoTs, which is Internet of Things sensors, and you have for a complete Internet of Things, and for a complete solution, you need the sensors, you need connectivity, so how the sensors will talk to each other. Is it Wi-Fi? Is it Bluetooth? And then data processing and user experience or user interface, basically. So a lot of that is a lot of computing involved in it. And if I didn't have the knowledge about computer science, I would struggle. And I put this up here to show you that, no matter what discipline, whether you're in medicine, whether you're in engineering, ultimately we all rely heavily in our jobs on technology. Even if you go into business and finance, again, you still need technology. And so it's important to have an understanding of computer science. Now, what I currently do, I left the UK. I was approached by a company called Hilti. They're a multinational with 30,000 employees around the world, and we're currently in 120 countries. And they reached out and asked if I would like to join their research team, their innovation center here in Liechtenstein. It's a small country in between Switzerland and Austria. So I actually live in Switzerland and I work in Liechtenstein. So it's a short bike ride for me every morning. So I rode my bike this morning. It's about 20 minutes from my house to the office, but it's two different countries. I didn't know about Liechtenstein until I got this job. So I always put it out there in case you're playing Scrabble or you're playing some games where you have to think of an obscure country nobody would think of. Liechtenstein is definitely one, but it's a really lovely place to work. And I'm currently the technical project manager for research and development, looking at new innovations, still in the construction sector, but now more how we build these buildings. And I've just put up some of our products here. So this is JBot, which is our new construction robot we launched to help construction sites doing manual tasks that are really strenuous on the body. So if you think about drilling at height for cables to run through from one floor to the other, or for ventilation systems to be suspended, it's quite a lot of tasks for somebody to be drilling that manually, because on one floor you can have 500 openings that you need to do. But with the JBot, that process is made faster. And that was designed here in the corporate research by the team and my colleagues here. Other products we have is the exoskeleton, which builders could wear on their body like this to prevent long-term health complications with the work that they have to do on job sites. And we have quite a lot of machines, and I recommend you check them out as to what we do. So throughout my career, I've been fortunate to be awarded several awards, and this slide just summarizes some of them here. I think a key one is the IET's Young Woman Engineer of the Year Award in 2017. But that has actually raised my profile, my professional profile, both in the UK, but across the globe in general. I've also gone on to work on so I was awarded the Travel Award by the IET, the Institution for Engineering and Technology, which enabled me to participate in a documentary and a project of 25 women engineers who went to Malawi to design a new STEM center. And this is available on YouTube if you want to check it out, on Amazon Prime. And we're all engineers, different stages in our career, all 25 of us. And we went on all female as well. And we went to Malawi for this project. So we fundraised for it, and we also financed the project with support from the local community there, and actually helped in the build of the project, bringing together our different knowledge and talents from engineering. So I mentioned the IET Young Woman Award, Young Woman Engineer of the Year Award in 2017. I got to meet a lot of young people and travel across the country. And this picture just summarizes some of it. I got asked to curate some books for a museum, Compton Veneer in Warwickshire, which is up here. Books that inspire young people in engineering, in science, technology, and mathematics. And it was a really life-changing and career-changing moment for me, and I like to highlight it. Now, in my free time, I do talks like this, like talking to you today about what I do. But most recently, I got approached by a team in the US about being a video host for a channel that we launched last year called Climate Now. And this ties into my passion, which I started with at the start of my slides. So on this channel, I'm a video host and we curate topics all around climate change and new renewable energy technologies that are on the scene. Now, I feel like oil, a lot of people talk about oil in a very negative way for good reason, but I also feel like oil has helped us advance as a society to where we are today. I wish that the scientists back then and the engineers were a lot more clearer and shared the disadvantages that are there and associated with oil. And so something we try to do with renewable energy and on this channel in Climate Now is really critique each technology, praise it for its benefits and highlight its benefits, but also draw the public's attention to what the disadvantages could be long term so that we're not in this position now where we know oil is really damaging our environment and our ecosystem, but we're not ready for it, So I do recommend if you're interested, we touch on different topics, wind energy, we touch on clean fuel, clean aviation fuel, and touch on different sectors. Our key audience is policymakers so that they're well informed about what they're making decisions on. But even schools actually use this as an educational piece. And again, if it's something you're interested in, I recommend you check it out. I'm also a volunteer for the IET, so the Institution for Engineering and Technology. And they also have quite a lot of resources for young people like yourselves in primary and secondary schools. And they also have resources for teachers to better support them in their teaching of engineering and of STEM. They give you access to engineers and who can come into your schools and do talks like I'm doing now. And I really recommend you check it out as well. So to summarize this first half about myself, about my career so far, I just put some top tips I want you to take away from that part of my presentation. On results day, collect your results early in case you must make phone calls to universities, the university's admissions office. You remember my story clearly about Loughborough University. Practice your STEM subjects is the only way to advance. But make sure you have fun while exploring your options. Discover your passion topics. So for me, it's the environment, it's energy, and it's innovation, basically. Those are the three things that I'm really passionate about. And you can see them in my passion projects, even in my freelance projects I'm doing, but also my actual career here at Hilti. So what challenge in your local community or global society would you like to take on? And with the help of your tutors, find the STEM career that helps you solve that. I think it's really good to be passionate about what you want to do in your next steps in your education, for example, which would then lead to your career. University is not the only way to an engineering career. I said it before and I'll say it again. So don't feel pressure like you have to go to university. There are apprenticeships also available. So explore the different routes and then decide for yourself which one best fits. I have no regrets about going to university. It was a privileged opportunity and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but that might not be the case for somebody else. So really spend time and think about your options and consider your options. There is funding and work experience opportunities on offer. So at least in my different jobs, I arranged work experience when I was back in the UK, where students could come in for a week of work experience and try out the different engineering because there's so many of them and it can be challenging choosing one that you want to do. But I think spend your summers, spend your breaks from schools, approaching engineering companies. They're very happy to help because they're interested in attracting more young people to join this sector. So take advantage of it and go explore and see so that you have a more informed decision about what you want to do in your next steps. Now that moves nicely into the next session, which is some STEM resources, which I would like to share with you in the next 10 minutes, and then we pause for questions and answers. So these are stuff I've curated over the years. This is from the Big Bang Fair, and you can go on the Big Bang website, which is down there, and it tells you 100 jobs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it's basically a poster to be inspired. You know, there is so many things you could choose, and this is just 100 that they've listed. So go have a look. There may be some roles you never even heard of and didn't know you could make the link by offering subjects in science, technology, engineering, and maths. Another great resource is This is Engineering. It's by the Royal Academy of Engineering. And again, it's a web series available with videos. And this just shows you the broad range of things that ultimately STEM careers is about problem solving and innovating. So it could be empowering people to work. So this is an engineer, biomedical engineer, and he creates prosthetics for people to be able to walk. And he does it through innovative ways. There are videos on all of them, and I really recommend you go and check them out. There is making even stuff like bath bombs you use in your bathrooms at home, the chemistry and the science that goes into that. There's farming, which is a critical topic. You know, we're growing in population. How do we continue to sustain and feed everybody, you know? Save people from disasters. So when there's a disaster that happens, engineers are typically one of the first, along with medics, that go into these disaster-prone areas and save lives. Protecting people from flooding, careers in music, careers in fashion, which is over here, and racing, all sorts. I really recommend you go to This is Engineering and have a look for yourself. They have many YouTube videos where these role models really talk about what they do in that career, and it's a good way to find inspiration if you don't know yet what you want to do. Now, focusing on computer science, you know, I found this quote which I really find interesting. It says, people wrongly assume that to love computer science, you just have to love technology and nothing else. But computer science can be applied to anything. So it can be applied to helping your community or saving the planet. Computer science will give you the technical skills to accomplish something that's important to you. It's never boring, and that's by Dr. Fabrink in the University of London. Now, I think fundamental to everything we do in STEM is computer science, and with the way society is advancing, it will continue to be that way. Now, if you want to find out more, for example, in the gaming industry, where quite a lot of computer science is heavily apparent, I recommend you have a look at this Girls Behind the Games campaign. You'll see so many stories about different women who have gone into the gaming industry and are designing games for the general public, which is one of the most lucrative industries. So that's just one example. It doesn't mean that when you study computer science, you only get a job in gaming. No, you do not, as you can see from my own career. It's very broad, but taking a keen interest could actually unlock other side things that you never imagined. And that's what I'm trying to highlight. And these are some of the jobs you could think of if you then go on to focus on a career in computer science. You could be a software developer, developing software like the lighting software I use, for example, to do my job as an electrical engineer was developed by a software developer. There's database administrators that then help with the sorting and analysis of data. There's computer hardware engineers who actually design and develop and test computer components, systems analysts, web developers, information security analysts. So these are people who create systems to protect information networks and websites from cyber attacks and other security breaches, which is so important in every aspect. So if you think of the sensors I mentioned before, it's a physical thing, but in the digital realm of it, it needs protection as well. As a research scientist as well, who invents technology that solves complex problems in science, medicine, and business. So I think my general conclusion is like, no matter what field you end up going in, even if it's business, fundamentally computer science is critical to that. And here's some other careers, and for you to see for yourself on the Tomorrow's Engineers website. So this is a career in medicine. Engineers are inventing many revolutionary products in healthcare, like 3D bioprinted human organs, smart glasses, and here is where I want you to pay attention to, the important subjects, maths and physics, which is all critical for all engineering. That's why I did it at A levels as well. And then here, useful subjects to have, computing is there. and it's the same for every single one. You want to go into sports. Engineers design and manufacture materials and equipment that help improve sporting performance, whether it's the shoes or the bikes. Again, maths and physics, again, computing is one of the crucial subjects you need to have. You want to go into transport, so connecting isolated communities to healthcare, planning airports, maths, physics, you need computing again. So products, you want to design products. So engineers develop and manufacture cutting edge health, beauty, so even makeup and stuff, and lifestyle products. Again, no surprise, computing is an element there. So I really hope you consider your subjects when you're making these decisions. Again, for one final, I'll just say refer you again to This Is Engineering website. And this is just to summarize by saying like STEM careers, including computing, which is the technology, stands for the T in there, enables you to make a difference. So if you want to be a difference or be the difference, I really recommend a career in engineering for you. And there's also organizations here. So there's Girls Who Code, and they support you in your learning. They have summer activities where you could get to meet other girls who are also interested in similar things like you are outside of your school, or you can do it together as a school. There's Imperial College as well, who have a program during the holidays for girls in computing, and there's STEMETS. So I recommend you check these 3 organizations out because they really have great sessions that help you build social skills, but also give you the opportunity to explore within computer science. I think I'll skip this because this is more for teachers, but then this is more for resources. And I've mentioned most of these organizations again, like the Royal Academy of Engineering, Tomorrow's Engineers, and the IET. There's also STEM Learning, which offer resources. A key one I recommend for all of you is Hacking STEM with Microsoft. They're really cool projects you could try out on your own if you're that enthused and want to try on hands-on activities for yourself. Now, for anyone in the public, in the room, who funding is a problem for them, and you worry about the cost because you might hear engineering is expensive or science is expensive. It is not. There are organizations that are out there to really sponsor you and provide scholarships and bursaries for you to study. So here I've just summarized them. You may not need this information now, but I always like to mention it so you're aware of it and you don't see funding as a limitation as to you pursuing a career in STEM. YouTube, I always recommend YouTube. So these are some of the channels there. There's Climate Now, which is obviously my channel. So this is a slight promo, but there are other really cool channels there that if you are interested in science, technology, engineering, and maths, I recommend you subscribe. So I use YouTube to learn how to cook new recipes, to learn how to do makeup and hair. I think we could also use it to learn for our education. So I often explore these different channels on engineering, especially Fuse School. They have really well explained content. So sometimes if I've learned something and it's not quite clear, I tend to go to these YouTube channels to then look at what the latest is and how else somebody else has explained these things. The B1N is all about construction. So if you want to see super amazing construction projects and what actually goes on behind the scenes, I recommend you check it out. But all these channels are equally good, and I've provided Miss with these resources. So if you want to refer back to them, she could share these parts of the presentation with you so that then you could then in your own time go through them. And if movies inspire you, I recommend these 2 movies, Hidden Figures, which is about amazing women in STEM who went on to achieve great things, but it tells you about their human stories. But also The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which is on Netflix. I tell you, you would watch this and you'd be inspired, and it's about a true story. He's a real engineer, William Kamkwamba, who is from Malawi, and he helped save his village during famine through engineering. I wouldn't say more because I don't want to ruin it for you. But I think I'll end my presentation here because I feel like I've been talking at you for quite some time and I really want to take your questions and answer any questions you have. But before I do that, I want to thank Miss for inviting me, and I want to thank you for listening to me. And hopefully something in my slide has inspired you, has given you ideas for the next directions as you take this crucial step in selecting the subjects you want to offer next. What I'll say as a summary is engineering is very fluid. It has offered me so many numerous opportunities. If you think about little Ozak from Cross River State, I never dreamed of the career I was going to have. I just started off by being passionate about a particular topic, and it has gone on to open my whole universe to a whole range of experiences that I can't actually verbalize to you. But yeah, if you want to get in touch, I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm always happy to hear from young people, hear your thoughts, and I look forward to answering your questions. So thank you very much. First question coming from Liz, asking, did you face any challenges due to your gender? I would say yes. Growing up in Nigeria, I did face challenges. For example, like the high school I ended up going to, it was because of my mom, and she really pushed for me to go to that school. But initially, I had extended family members who didn't think it was, who felt it was a waste of money for them to pay for my father to pay for the school that my brother went to. So I have an older brother who's first, and yeah. Quite often, I would say girls are quite limited in various parts of the world, but I can only speak for Nigeria, which is where I'm from. Ultimately, it took my mom being courageous and stepping in and saying she's not going to have that sort of divide in her household where one child is automatically good enough to go and pursue education at this really good school and the other isn't. And so I think that's the only immediate time I can remember where my gender could have set the tone for the rest of my life, because I was able to go to the good school that my brother went to, I've been able to come this far in my career, in my life, and I'm now able to contribute to society. My aunties, my extended family were of the opinion that because I'm a girl, I'm gonna get married. There was no point spending that much on my education. But today now they see me as a contributing member of society, and they are equally proud. Some of them are ashamed for saying those things back then. In terms of my professional career, so far, I've had enabling opportunities, and I wouldn't say I have faced any challenges due to my gender, but I am aware as I get longer in my career, I want to, get married and have kids. And so seeing how companies support women who go off on a career break, for maternity leave, etc., is something I assess more in my choice of a new employer. And that's something Hilti really encourages. They really encourage with parental leaves for both fathers and mothers. So it's not just female engineers alone. They cater to both gender groups, basically, and the needs that they have. So the short answer to your question is yes, I have faced a challenge due to my gender, but that was in my very early years in Nigeria, deciding what high school I was going to go to. But ever since then, it's been pretty much the sky is the limit. There are lots of programs and support for women these days in engineering that I haven't personally felt any challenge since the start of my career as a professional engineer. If anything, I've felt more support. Did you find it hard moving countries? I was excited to move from Nigeria to the UK. I felt very privileged to have that opportunity because I had never been before. It was my first time coming as a student. And I think I've always had an open mind. I think more global. So I knew it would come. I knew I wouldn't just be confined to Nigeria. I've always had that inner belief. But yeah, I was excited, to explore, to try new things. And I did. Now, I got very comfortable in the UK, I'm not going to lie, that I never really thought I would explore opportunities in Europe. So moving to Switzerland, I was a bit nervous because it's a new language, first of all. Moving to the UK was so easy for me. Nigeria was colonized by the British, so English is our first language in Nigeria. So there was not really any major changes, only cultural changes. So British people like to talk about the weather a lot. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, we don't really talk about the weather as much. So little subtle things like that were the main difference. I wasn't nervous, I would say. But moving to Switzerland, I was a lot more nervous because in Switzerland, the three main languages are German, French, and Italian, and I speak none of them. But now I'm learning German. So my company is an international company. So there's about 60 nationalities here in headquarters. So we actually speak English for business, but to survive in the surrounding areas. So to go grocery shopping, to buy train tickets, to just get by. It helps if you can speak German. And so I started taking German classes and German lessons, which my company pays for. And it was the smoothest move. I moved during the pandemic. The company organized for people to come and pack my stuff and move all my things. So it was actually the easiest move. It was easier than leaving university for my first job. So moving countries was actually, moving from UK to Switzerland was easier than moving from Loughborough to Birmingham, where my first job was, which is quite interesting because I didn't have to do most of it. It was all done for me. And I had a relocation agent who had already prepared my accommodation here, my apartment here for me. So I would say it wasn't hard. And I've made new friends here, which was also a scary part for me moving in the pandemic. All my friends are in the UK, not all, but most of them are in the UK. That's sort of where I had my life. My sister is in the UK. But I've just also made Switzerland my home. My parents come to visit. In fact, my mom just left and my sister came to visit. So no, I'll say I found it very easy to move countries and to integrate. I like learning new cultures. I like traveling. So it worked well for me and it's helping me grow because the more of the world you see, the more open your mind becomes basically. And I think engineering is one of the few careers that enables you to travel that much and explore that much. So even for projects I'm working on, I got to travel to interesting places, all on company expenses. I have to point that out. So yeah, I think I'm in the right profession. It matches my passions, but it also matches my hobbies. So like I mentioned before, I really love to travel. I love to explore cultures. So yeah. Okay, I've just seen a message in from Miss. I know there's a 35-second delay or not, but she says she thinks that's all you have time for. So thank you all very much for your time, and I wish you all the best in your next steps. Bye.